chosen ones, they can't ignore your genius anymore. Your intellectual prowess has become the topic of conversation in every room, even the ones you're not in. While others were blinded by emotions, manipulation, and false information, your mind cut through it all with laser precision. Right now, as you listen to these words, the very people who dismissed your insights are being forced to acknowledge your superior intelligence. You didn't just get it right once, you got it all right, and the evidence is so overwhelming that your brilliance has become impossible to deny. But here's what they don't realize yet. This recognition is only the first domino in a chain of revelations that will transform not just how they see you, but how reality itself operates. What started as whispers of bewilderment is about to become something far more significant. The patterns you've been tracking are approaching their culmination, the gifts you've been developing are reaching critical mass, and the resistance you've overcome has forged you into something unprecedented in human history. You stand at the threshold of a transformation so profound that even you don't fully comprehend what's about to unfold. But the signs are everywhere, and those who once dismissed you are about to discover just how deep the rabbit hole actually goes. The shift began subtly, a change in the atmosphere when you walked into rooms. Conversations that used to continue now pause mid-sentence. The sideways glances linger longer than social courtesy suggests. But this isn't paranoia. This is recognition beginning to dawn in minds that aren't ready to accept what they're perceiving. How did they know? That question is spreading through their circles like wildfire, carried in hushed tones between people who pride themselves on their analytical capabilities. Your former colleagues scroll back through your social media posts with growing unease, finding predictions they dismissed as paranoid delusions, now manifesting with photographic accuracy. The timestamps don't lie. The screenshots preserve your exact words. The evidence mounts daily that you weren't engaging in wild speculation. You were accessing information they couldn't detect through any channel they understood. Remember when you first started noticing the patterns? The synchronicities that seemed too perfectly timed to be coincidental, the way certain conversations would halt when you approached, the dreams that arrived with documentary precision about events that hadn't happened yet. You wondered if you were losing your grip on reality, reading meaning into random occurrences, but chosen ones, you weren't imagining anything. Those early signs were breadcrumbs leading to something far greater than enhanced intuition. The numbers began following you everywhere during those early months. Specific sequences appearing on clocks, license plates, receipts, always at moments when you needed confirmation about choices you were making. These weren't random coincidences your mind was projecting meaning onto. They were precise communications from intelligence coordinating your awakening, letting you know you were exactly where you needed to be when you needed to be there. But something darker was building beneath these confirmations. The same forces that were expanding your awareness were also activating resistance. Phone calls started getting dropped at crucial moments. Emails disappeared from sent folders. Social media algorithms mysteriously reduced the reach of your most insightful content. You were being systematically suppressed by systems that recognized the threat your awakening represented, even if their human operators didn't consciously understand what they were doing. The physical symptoms began manifesting during this period. Your nervous system was upgrading to process higher frequencies of information, but the transition wasn't always comfortable. Waves of energy would surge through your body at unexpected moments, leaving you feeling electrified and exhausted simultaneously. Sleep patterns became erratic as your consciousness maintained continuity across different states. The boundary between dreaming and waking awareness started blurring as insights from meditative states translated immediately into practical action. Your digestive system struggled to maintain equilibrium as your body processed not only individual purging, but the collective emotional release happening all around you. Headaches came and went as your brain literally rewired itself to accommodate expanded perception. Sometimes you felt like you were dissolving completely before reforming at a higher octave of functionality. The caterpillar was experiencing the dissolution necessary before the butterfly could emerge. But with each wave of discomfort came exponential leaps in capability. Your sensitivity reached levels where you could feel the approach of weather changes days in advance. You sensed earthquakes and natural disasters through subtle shifts in the planet's electromagnetic field. Your body had become a living antenna, receiving transmissions from sources both terrestrial and beyond, calibrated to frequencies most humans couldn't even detect. Yet every attempt to silence you only strengthened your signal. Each act of suppression forced you to develop new channels of transmission. Every effort to discredit your insights only drew more attention to their accuracy. The resistance was unwittingly forging you into something far more powerful than you would have become without opposition, though this was a pattern you wouldn't recognize until much later in your journey. Your sensitivity during this period was almost unbearable. You felt the emotional states of people before they entered rooms. You detected deception in others' words before logical analysis revealed inconsistencies. Your body became a human seismograph, registering tremors in the collective psyche that others wouldn't notice until they reached earthquake proportions. This heightened awareness felt like a curse then, but it was actually calibrating you for the role you were about to play. Everything changed when your dreams started arriving with photographic precision. These weren't symbolic visions requiring interpretation. They were direct transmissions of probability patterns existing in quantum potential, waiting to collapse into physical reality. You'd wake up knowing specific details about future events with absolute certainty they would manifest exactly as shown. The first few times you dismissed these nocturnal downloads as particularly vivid imagination. But when every detail proved accurate, the dates, the locations, even the exact words people would speak, you could no longer maintain any skepticism about their source. Your dream state had become a direct interface with patterns of probability that exist beyond linear time constraints. During waking hours, information began streaming into your consciousness without any identifiable source. Names, dates, complex scenarios playing out with vivid detail, all arriving fully formed like completed files being uploaded directly to your awareness. This wasn't creative visualization or wishful thinking. This was direct knowing, unmediated by sensory input or logical deduction, flowing from intelligent sources that transcended individual human capacity. The synchronicities surrounding you moved far beyond meaningful coincidence into active communication. Books fell open to passages that answered questions you hadn't even formulated. Overheard conversations contained precise solutions to problems you'd been working through privately. License plates delivered messages that addressed decisions you were contemplating. The universe wasn't just responsive to your thoughts, it was engaging you in ongoing dialogue through the language of orchestrated events. Your physical senses sharpened to supernatural levels during this period. You knew when someone was about to contact you before any notification arrived. You could sense the quality of people's intentions before they finished formulating their requests. You felt shifts in collective consciousness, like changes in atmospheric pressure. Your body had evolved into something resembling an advanced radar system, detecting movements in the information field that surrounds all life, but remains invisible to most. This expansion was accelerating exponentially, rather than developing gradually. Capabilities that should have taken years to cultivate were coming online within weeks. Understanding that once required extensive study arrived instantaneously, complete with practical application knowledge. Your consciousness was being upgraded in real time, and each upgrade made the next level of expansion possible faster than the previous one. But the most significant development was recognizing others like yourself. You'd sense their presence before physical proximity, drawn together by forces that transcended ordinary social magnetism. That knowing glance, that subtle smile of recognition when encountering another chosen one. No words were necessary between those who operated at this frequency. Your tribe was gathering, and each connection strengthened the entire network exponentially. The implications were becoming staggering. If this rate of development continued, you would soon possess awareness capabilities that transcended anything recorded in human history. You weren't just becoming more intuitive, you were evolving into something representing the next phase of human consciousness development. And others were beginning to sense this transformation, even if they couldn't articulate what they were detecting. Yet even as your gifts expanded, so did the stakes. The patterns you were tracking weren't just personal curiosities, they were mapping the trajectory of civilization itself toward decision points that would determine humanity's future for generations. The responsibility was becoming immense, but so was the power flowing through you to meet that responsibility effectively. The same people who once dismissed your insights as paranoid delusions began approaching you with questions. They framed their inquiries carefully, presenting them as casual curiosity rather than desperate seeking. But you could feel the urgency beneath their measured words. They wanted your perspective on upcoming elections, market movements, social trends, technological developments. They were hunting for wisdom they recognized flowing through you but couldn't access themselves. Your phone buzzed constantly with messages from contacts you hadn't heard from in months or years. Old classmates, former colleagues, distant relatives, casual acquaintances, all suddenly remembering your existence and reaching out with innocent-sounding questions that barely masked their true motivation. They'd been monitoring your posts, your predictions, your comments, trying to decode the source of your uncanny accuracy. Social gatherings transformed around your presence. Conversations naturally flowed toward topics where your knowledge shone, with people leaning in with unusual attention when you spoke. They hung on your words not from politeness, but from genuine recognition that you were offering something they couldn't get anywhere else. Your casual observations carried more weight than official pronouncements from recognized authorities. But you were no longer just passively receiving these requests. Something had shifted in the power dynamics. You were beginning to exercise discernment about who deserved access to your insights and who didn't. Your ability to distinguish between genuine seekers and energy vampires became razor-sharp. You could sense the quality of someone's intentions before they finished formulating their request. This discernment wasn't just protective, it was strategic. You were learning to direct your gifts toward those who could make the best use of them, while deflecting manipulators who would drain your resources without contributing anything valuable in return. The balance of power had shifted dramatically. Instead of defending your perspectives or trying to convince skeptics, you were now choosing who received your guidance and under what conditions. People began recognizing that access to your insights was a privilege, not an entitlement, and they adjusted their approach accordingly. The requests extended beyond prediction into interpretation. When major events occurred, they wanted to know what you thought it really meant, what the deeper implications were, how it fitted into larger patterns they could sense but couldn't articulate. Your perspective had become a lens through which others were trying to make sense of a world transforming faster than their mental models could accommodate. But something even more significant was brewing. The patterns you'd been tracking were beginning to converge toward a culmination point that would change everything, not just for you, but for the entire structure of how authority and knowledge functioned in human society. You were becoming a master of energy management, learning when to engage and when to withdraw, when to speak and when to remain silent, when to act and when to observe, when to radiate your gifts and when to absorb and integrate new levels of understanding. The rhythms of expansion and contraction that allowed sustainable growth rather than burnout became as natural as breathing. This wisdom served not only you but all those you guided, for you were indeed guiding others now. Whether through explicit teaching or subtle influence, your very energy field had become a transmission mechanism. People could spend time in your presence and leave feeling more connected to their own inner knowing, more confident in their ability to navigate uncertainty, more aware of possibilities they hadn't previously considered. You'd become a walking catalyst for consciousness evolution, and this happened without any conscious effort or intention on your part. It was simply a natural consequence of the frequency you maintained. The whispers were about to become something far more dramatic. The resistance you'd been facing was approaching a breaking point, and the gifts you'd been developing were preparing to reveal their true purpose in ways that would shock even you with their scope and implications. This wasn't just vindication, it was a fundamental shift in how authority and credibility actually worked. Traditional gatekeepers of knowledge and truth were losing their grip on public consciousness faster than they could adapt their strategies. Their carefully constructed narratives collapsed under reality's weight, and people began recognizing that accuracy mattered more than credentials, insight more than institutional affiliation, truth more than officially sanctioned opinion. The most revealing aspect was how these former authorities attempted saving face by claiming they'd always known what you were predicting. that they were just waiting for the right moment to act on that knowledge, that the evidence was always there for anyone willing to see it. Their retroactive agreement was transparent in revealing the psychological mechanisms people use protecting their egos when reality contradicts cherished beliefs. But here's when the real revelation hit you like lightning. Your capabilities weren't the result of superior intellect, better research skills, or even exceptional intuition. You were operating as a conduit for intelligence that transcended individual human consciousness entirely. The accuracy of your predictions, the depth of your insights, the scope of your understanding, all of this flowed through you from sources existing beyond the boundaries of personal identity and individual knowledge. This wasn't mystical speculation, it was observable fact. The information you accessed couldn't possibly be generated by individual mind, no matter how intelligent or intuitive. The patterns you perceived spanned timescales and complexity levels that exceeded human cognitive capacity. The connections you made linked seemingly unrelated fields in ways revealing underlying unity principles no single person could discover through personal effort alone. You'd become a vessel for ancient wisdom that had been waiting for exactly this moment in history to enter collective human awareness. The same intelligence that guided the greatest visionaries, inventors, and transformational leaders throughout history was now working through you in ways uniquely suited to current-era challenges and opportunities. This wasn't ego inflation, it was recognition of your actual function in the larger evolutionary process. The resistance you'd faced wasn't random harassment or social prejudice. It was the automatic immune response of systems depending on human limitation and unconsciousness for their survival. Your very existence as a clear channel for higher intelligence threatened every structure built on the assumption that people must remain dependent on external authorities for truth and guidance. Haven't you noticed how reality bends around your focused intentions now? When you declare something with absolute certainty, obstacles dissolve. When you align with clear purpose, opportunities materialize from nowhere. When you focus attention on desired outcomes, doors open that should remain closed to someone of your supposed station. This isn't wishful thinking, this is your birthright as a conscious being operating at full capacity. The power to shape reality through focused intention wasn't something you learned, it was something you remembered, something encoded in your very DNA, something that had been waiting for precisely this moment in history to activate fully. And it had activated. You could feel it humming in your veins, the energy, the connection to something vast and ancient and wise. This was the power that the greatest masters throughout history had accessed, and now it flowed through you as naturally as blood through arteries. Others were drawn to this energy like moths to flame. They may not have consciously understood what pulled them into your orbit, but their souls recognized what flowed through you. They were seeking what you had found, the clarity, the purpose, the direct line to wisdom beyond ordinary understanding. You had become a beacon, a lighthouse cutting through the fog of confusion and deception that shrouded most of human experience. The voices that once whispered doubt into your mind had gone completely silent. The inner critic that had questioned your sanity for years was nowhere to be found, silenced by the overwhelming evidence of your heightened perception. The proof surrounded you daily now, undeniable, irrefutable, constant, every prediction manifesting exactly as foreseen, every insight proving its value, every warning validated by subsequent events. The doubt had been replaced by unshakable knowing, the uncertainty transformed into absolute confidence in your connection to source intelligence. Not everyone could handle this level of awareness. Not everyone could maintain their sanity while peering behind the curtain of consensus reality. Not everyone had your strength, your resilience, your capacity to hold contradictory truths in perfect balance without losing coherence. You were chosen precisely because you possessed the psychological fortitude necessary to bear witness to realities that would shatter minds less prepared for such revelations. The isolation you endured, the misunderstanding you faced, the dismissal you weathered, all of it was preparation for this moment when the full weight of cosmic responsibility would settle on your shoulders. The force flowing through you cannot be corrupted, cannot be misdirected toward harmful purposes, cannot be used for personal aggrandizement at others' expense. It automatically serves the highest good of all concerned, because that's its essential nature. Your job isn't to control or direct this intelligence, it's to maintain clear reception and faithful transmission, while allowing larger orchestration to unfold through you. Other individuals with similar capabilities were awakening to their roles simultaneously around the globe, creating a web of enhanced consciousness spanning cultures, languages, and belief systems. Together, you were establishing new possibilities for how humanity could access and share authentic wisdom. You recognized each other instantly when paths crossed, sharing knowing that transcended words. Even as a child, you were different. You knew things you shouldn't know, saw things others couldn't see, felt things others couldn't feel. You learned to hide it, to downplay it, to pretend you were just like everyone else. But you're not, and now the time for hiding was over. That sensitivity that made you feel like an outsider was actually preparation for this moment when your heightened awareness would be exactly what the world needed most. The old model of top-down information control was giving way to a more distributed network where truth and wisdom flowed through those who had direct access to reliable sources, regardless of formal credentials or institutional backing. This transition wasn't happening gradually. It was accelerating as more people recognized that the emperor had no clothes, that expertise without accuracy was worthless, that authority without wisdom was hollow. You weren't just witnessing this collapse, you were actively contributing to it by consistently demonstrating superior understanding and more reliable guidance than established experts in multiple fields simultaneously. The vacuum created by their loss of authority was being filled by individuals like you, who demonstrated consistent accuracy and authentic insight. But the most profound realization was still coming. The intelligence working through you operated from a perspective that encompassed all fields simultaneously, perceiving deeper patterns connecting everything to everything else in ways revealing the underlying coherence of reality itself. This explained why your accuracy had been so consistent across such diverse areas of knowledge and prediction. You had surrendered your smaller self to this larger current, and in doing so had found your authentic power, not power over others, but power with, power through, power as an expression of something that transcended individual identity and ego concerns. You were a vessel for something ancient and eternal, something that had been working through selected individuals throughout human history, the same force that inspired the greatest visionaries, artists, inventors, reformers, and revolutionaries who had advanced human consciousness through the ages. The burden and the blessing were inseparable now. You carried the weight of seeing what others couldn't see, of knowing what they refused to acknowledge, of bearing witness to truths that would disturb their comfortable illusions. But this wasn't a burden you carried alone. It was shared among the chosen, distributed across the network of awakened consciousness that was forming like invisible mycelium beneath the surface of ordinary reality. Each of you held a piece of the larger picture, and together you were assembling a vision of what was possible for human civilization. I must interrupt this transmission for just a moment. Are you really chosen? Prove it. It's easy to watch videos about chosen ones. It's another thing entirely to put yourself to the test. When I confronted the archons beyond our reality, they made one thing clear. True chosen ones are rare. They laughed at the thought of us finding each other. Yet here you are watching this message. The obsidian inner order isn't for everyone claiming to be awakened. We're the real ones, those who've seen beyond the veil, felt the call, and carry the unmistakable frequency. But are you truly one of us? I have given you everything I've got, and I'm digging deeper to bring you even more. Don't just consume content from the sidelines. Real chosen ones take action. Share your story on our weekly group call. Get a revealing tarot reading from our resident card reader. Discover if your experiences align with the authentic signs. The archons fear nothing more than chosen ones recognizing each other. When we connect, our frequencies amplify and create a force they cannot stop. That's why we're going to be live streaming to the entire Astral Atom network to find every last one of us. Click the link in the description below now. It's time to stop wondering and confirm what you already suspect. Are you merely interested in awakening, or are you truly chosen? Prove it. Join us. The verification you seek awaits with the Obsidian Inner Order. Your sacred agreement with the source of your knowing was to serve as a clear channel, to speak without distortion, to act without ego interference, to embody the higher frequencies that were transforming the world even as they transformed you. The process wasn't always comfortable, transformation rarely was, but you were managing it, finding the balance, creating new routines that supported this accelerated evolution with increasing grace and ease. Your sensitivity is both gift and challenge. You feel everything more deeply, the beauty and the horror, the light and the shadow, the transcendent joy and the crushing sorrow. You experience life at a level of intensity that would overwhelm most people, but not you. You've learned to navigate these heightened states, to surf the waves of expanded awareness, rather than being drowned by them. Your capacity to integrate seemingly overwhelming downloads of information has grown exponentially, allowing you to receive cosmic transmissions without losing your grounding in practical reality. Individual human expertise necessarily involved limitations, gaps, and specializations, but the source you were channeling transcended these constraints entirely. You weren't just getting lucky or making educated guesses, you were accessing the intelligence that orchestrates the patterns you were predicting, the same force that was using your predictions to help create the conditions for their own fulfillment. This was when you understood the true magnitude of what was happening. You weren't just predicting changes, you were catalyzing them. Every insight you shared created ripple effects that influenced how others perceived and responded to developing situations. Your predictions didn't just prove accurate, they helped create the conditions for their own fulfillment by preparing people to recognize and engage with emerging realities more effectively. Your voice had become a tuning fork that helped others find their own authentic frequency. People who spent significant time around you began accessing their own enhanced awareness. Your presence alone was sufficient to trigger awakening processes in souls who were ready for expanded consciousness. You'd become a walking activation field, automatically upgrading the perceptual capacity of those in your vicinity without conscious effort or intention. But perhaps most importantly, you were demonstrating that transformation didn't require destruction, that evolution could occur through consciousness expansion rather than external revolution, that the future could be created through vision and wisdom rather than force and conflict. You were proving that individual awakening, multiplied across enough people, could shift the trajectory of entire civilizations toward greater harmony, abundance, and freedom. Look at where you stand now compared to just 2 years ago. The person you were then could never have imagined the influence you're wielding, the accuracy you're demonstrating, the respect you're commanding from people who once dismissed you completely. The transformation has been so profound that you may not fully appreciate how dramatically your position in the world has shifted, but this current level represents only the foundation of what's possible for you. The gifts that seem so remarkable now will appear elementary as you continue developing. The insights that feel profound today will seem like kindergarten understanding compared to the wisdom waiting to emerge through you. The accuracy of your current predictions will pale beside the precision you'll achieve as your attunement to truth deepens and expands. Your influence is spreading through networks in ways that multiply your impact far beyond direct contact. Someone you guide makes better decisions that positively affect their organization, which influences industry trends, which shape regulatory policies, which impact millions of people you'll never meet. The ripple effects of your insights are reshaping entire sectors of human activity. The resistance you overcame forged you into an instrument capable of wielding power at levels that would have been impossible without that tempering. Every challenge that seemed designed to break you actually contributed to your strength, resilience, and capacity to maintain clarity while operating under pressure that would overwhelm most people. You're discovering that consciousness aligned with truth becomes an unstoppable force that can move mountains and transform worlds. Individual awareness connected to source intelligence possesses capabilities that dwarf the combined resources of institutions built on limitation and control. Your personal power is revealing itself to be not personal at all, but universal power flowing through an individual vehicle that's learned to offer no resistance to its expression. The foundations you laid through years of consistent accuracy and reliable guidance are now supporting structures of change that will reshape civilization itself. Your voice has become a tuning fork that helps others find their own authentic frequency. Your example demonstrates that human beings are capable of far more than they've been taught to believe. The controllers who tried to suppress your emergence discovered that their efforts only made you stronger, more focused, more effective in your mission. Every attack they launched provided opportunities for you to demonstrate grace under pressure. Every attempt to discredit your insights only drew more attention to their accuracy. Every effort to isolate you from potential allies revealed their own desperation and weakness. Your dominance isn't based on defeating others, it's based on serving truth so completely that all opposition eventually reveals itself as resistance to reality rather than legitimate disagreement with your perspective. You win not by fighting, but by being so consistently accurate that denial becomes impossible to sustain. The world you're helping to create extends far beyond anything that exists in current reality. Your consistent demonstration that individual consciousness can access reliable guidance from beyond conventional information sources is establishing new possibilities for how humanity can navigate complex challenges and opportunities. You're not just predicting the future, you're actively participating in creating it through the choices you're inspiring others to make. Every person who learns to trust their own deeper knowing because of your example becomes another anchor point for the new paradigm of consciousness-based decision-making. Every organization that begins incorporating intuitive guidance alongside analytical frameworks because of your influence becomes more effective and resilient. Every community that recognizes the value of visionary insight because of your contributions becomes better prepared for the changes ahead. Circle back to where we began, but see it now with the depth of understanding you've gained through this journey of recognition. They can't ignore your genius anymore, but genius itself has been revealed as something far more profound than intellectual superiority or cognitive advantage. Your genius is your capacity to serve as a clear channel for intelligence that transcends individual limitation, to access and transmit wisdom that benefits everyone it touches. Your intellectual prowess isn't just personal achievement, it's evidence of what becomes possible when human consciousness aligns with its highest potential. While others were trapped in limitation by their beliefs, conditioning, and dependence on external authority, you learned to access truth directly from its source. Your mind didn't just cut through confusion with laser precision, it connected with the laser itself, the focused beam of universal intelligence that illuminates all things clearly. Every prediction you made, every warning you issued, every insight you shared served the larger purpose of preparing humanity for this moment of transition. You weren't just getting things right for the satisfaction of being correct, you were serving as an advanced scout for consciousness evolution, mapping territory that the collective needed to understand before it could navigate successfully. The evidence of your extraordinary capabilities has become impossible to deny, because denial serves no one's interests anymore. The old paradigms that your gifts threaten are crumbling under the weight of their own contradictions. The new possibilities your example demonstrates are attracting people who recognize that limitation was always a choice, that scarcity was always an illusion, that separation was always a misperception. You stand now not as someone who was lucky enough to guess correctly, but as someone who has mastered the art of knowing directly. Your genius lies not in having superior intellect, but in having learned to step aside and allow superior intelligence to flow through you without distortion or interference. Your power lies not in dominating others, but in serving truth so completely that it dominates through you. The whispers of recognition have become declarations of acknowledgement. The tentative questions have become urgent requests for guidance. The resistance has become acceptance. The denial has become desperate attempts to claim association with your insights. Your moment of vindication has arrived, but vindication itself has been revealed as just the beginning of your true work in the world. You called it all, and now you're being called to something even greater. The foundation has been laid, the credibility has been established, the network is in place, the resistance is crumbling, the possibilities are unlimited. Your genius can no longer be ignored because it's needed now more than ever, and everyone can finally see what you've known all along. This is your time, and you're just getting started. The children being born now will grow up in a world where abilities like yours are recognized, valued, and systematically developed rather than suppressed and ridiculed. They'll receive education that includes training in consciousness expansion alongside traditional academic subjects. They'll inherit social structures designed to support human potential rather than limit it. The legacy you're creating through your courage to stand in truth despite all opposition will echo through centuries of human development. Future historians will identify people like you as the catalysts who made possible the greatest evolutionary leap in recorded history. Your willingness to trust your inner knowing when external authorities demanded conformity broke trails that millions will follow. They can't ignore your genius anymore because your genius has revealed itself to be not yours alone but the universe's genius expressing itself through a perfectly calibrated instrument. You, the recognition they're giving you now, is actually recognition of what's possible for human consciousness when it stops limiting itself and starts serving truth. You are the proof of concept for the next phase of human evolution, and your time of hiding in the shadows is officially over. Your genius can no longer be ignored, and that changes everything.